Good morning, everybody. Good afternoon or good evening from wherever it is that you're dialing in. I'm Owen Video, and today we're going to talk about framing. I'm super excited to be sharing this particular topic with you guys today. Why? Because this to me is so fundamental video. It's so fundamental video, and it's not really being talked about anywhere other than film school. And that's just the long and the short of it. Film school is where this stuff is taught. Yet, if you fail to implement these tactics in your marketing videos, you could totally blow it. So what I want to talk about today is framing and what that means and how you can take advantage of it. Okay? Now, the reason that I'm offering all of this for free is because I'm about to launch a new course, and I'm excited to experiment with some of this content. So this new course is designed specifically for business owners, and it's designed specifically for business owners to use video to generate leads. So what I'd like to know from you is, if you're watching, is what am I missing, right? What are some of your questions that relate to framing? And maybe your question is as simple as, what is framing? Or any of your other questions related to marketing videos. I would love for you to ask me those questions in the comments below, or write to me on Facebook, because as I said, we're launching this new course and we're experimenting on you with the content, and we'd like to know what's missing and how we can improve. So I hope you guys will take the time to do that, and I hope you'll take the time at the first of the year to check out the new course. So let's talk about what framing is, okay? And if you're watching us live or watching on the replay, take a moment right now and type into the question box or to the description box who you are and what you do, so we get a sense of who's out there and the type of businesses, right, that are being represented on this call today. All right? So let's talk about framing and what framing is, okay? So framing is essentially the placement of the items, of the subjects inside the screen. Okay? The frame is what the viewer sees. It's what appears in the video player box, or in our case, the viewfinder box. Okay? That's what framing is. And how you frame your subject is going to determine how I feel about the show that I'm watching. Okay? Paul and Carrie, great to see you guys. Let me ask you guys first, since you were the first to chime in. How do you feel right now tuning into this show? Right? Tuning into this show, and you see me, I'm in the middle of the frame. I've got a green screen background. I've got sort of a red opposite color shirt, and I've got some lights sort of back here. I've got some space on the side, sort of creating a behind the scenes feel, right? What do you guys think of that? How do you guys feel about that shot? I'd love to know your feedback. And while you're thinking about that, let me show you what happens when I change the frame, okay? So now I'm moving back a little bit here, okay? Now, how do you feel about what you're watching? I'm really interested to know your thoughts, because if my theory is correct, then you're going to feel differently. You're going to feel farther away from me. The echo, it's going to be a little bit farther back, and you're reaching in, right? Did any of you guys pull up the phone or kind of move in closer to the screen? I'd love to know your thoughts on that. Similarly, I can bring it up here and give you even more of sort of a different appeal. How did you guys feel about that? Okay? So we're getting some great feedback here. Carrie says she felt it was professional and inviting, but distant. Excellent, excellent. Paul says it's like a casual video. Now you're too far away and distant. So when I'm up close, I sort of give the feeling, when I'm at this right distance, I give the feeling of comfort, right? Think of it like talking space, right? How far you are from somebody when you're talking to them. And, you know, close talkers always like to get in, you know, get in real close. The same is true for your videos. How far away or how close you are to the screen is going to affect the way that the viewer feels about you. Now, just a second ago, I did sort of a Blair Witch, you know, sort of like, I mean, can you guys feel the tension with me this close? When I went back and farther away, did any of you lean in to go, oh, he's kind of farther away? Now imagine, here's the kicker behind framing. Imagine your viewer, your primary viewer, leans in when you're delivering your pitch. Imagine your viewer feeling tense about using a competitor's product. You know, I hired the wrong sales company. Right? The framing, where the subject appears in the viewer box, affects the way your viewers are going to accept your video. Okay? Excuse me. I'm in my dusty garage. So I want to talk about some of the major pitfalls, the major problems that I see business owners with no film training. Keep in mind, guys, I went to film school. I went to film school. It wasn't film school. I went to university and I studied media. I started on the film track and then I ended up on the media track. Okay? Because why? I didn't want to be a broke filmmaker. I didn't want to be a broke filmmaker. I knew that there was a market in video and I knew it was in the business community. So that's sort of my background. And what I want to talk about today is how you can avoid those pitfalls and how you can make a better marketing video. Okay? The first thing I want to talk about is your close-ups and what those are called. Okay, so with shooting, we've got. I'm gonna have to play with the camera a little bit here. I mean, this is a live demonstration, guys, so I know it's going to be a little bit bumpy. Let's talk a little bit about your shots. This is what we would call a wide shot or an establishing shot. Okay, this shot sort of tells us where we are, right? It tells us where we are. I heard it earlier, like if you feel like you're watching a director direct, right? That's what the establishing shot is. It's a wide shot. You're going to get, you know, most of the speaker or the talent. The person on screen is generally referred to as the talent. You're going to get most of the talent's body plus their surrounding area. This is an establishing shot. Okay? If you're shooting white screen videos like I know Paul is, okay, you're going to want to play a lot with these three levels of wide, you know, center and close, right? And moving your body sort of in and out with the screen. But generally speaking, if you're shooting in an office or an outdoor environment, this is your establishing shot, okay? And it's a wide shot. Now let's talk about a medium shot. A medium shot is, again, is referring to the talent. Okay, a medium shot, again, it's a shot that refers to the talent, and you're gonna get, you know, like a belly button shot, maybe like a belt level up, no pants. You're not gonna get the belt line in. Okay, does that make sense to you guys? Give me some likes, whether you're watching live or on the replay. Give me some likes to let me know that you're picking up what I'm putting down here. Okay, a couple things to notice about this shot now. Number one, I had to readjust the camera. Okay, very, very key. That if you're going to be moving the subject around, the camera too is going to have to move. Notice that my head is always, you know, the same-ish distance away from the top of the frame. Okay, that's called headroom, and that's the area where I see business owners most fail is in their headroom. So even when I was back here, right, you guys see how there's like all this headroom up here? That's a bad frame. That's a bad frame. The speaker, the talent, should always be, right about 4 fingers from the top of the screen. Okay? So if I'm going to go back here, guess what I'm going to have to do? Readjust the camera. Okay? So I'm going to pull the camera down a little bit. Right? And now, see, I can't, not quite. There we go. See? And now I've got that same 4-finger distance, but my jeans are in frame, and I'm back to the establishing shot. Okay? So you've got sort of these basic rules, all right, of headroom. So we just talked about this is your wide establishing shot. This is like your medium shot, right? You're going to have to readjust the camera to get this done. And then, of course, you've got your close-up. Now, your close-up, guys, is going to be, let's see if I can even get this. I don't think so. Your close-up is going to be, you know, your close-up can be like right about here. This is a close-up. This is a close-up, right? We also call it a 3-button shot. Notice again that my head is still, you know, I'm on my knees here. I'm sort of like bending my knees to make it fit. I'm kind of doing this thing. But notice again that my head is still the same, you know, 4-finger-ish distance from the top of the screen, right? But we also call this a 3-button shot, right? Because I'm at like the 1, 2, 3rd button-ish, right? So this is your close-up. But again, the headroom doesn't change, okay? And then you've got your extreme close-up, right? And your extreme close-up is extremely useful in creating that crunched, what do I do? You know, tense. Do you guys feel like you're jam-packed in a room with me right now? You know, so imagine doing a video where you say like, have you ever stepped on a crowded elevator and you're like, it's nice to meet you, ma'am. I hate that. And that's why I use the #1 deodorant that everyone loves, right? So can you guys see how when I change the framing there, I change the atmosphere, I change the mood, and I'm able to create an emotion in my viewer that's consistent with the emotion I want them to feel in order to make a purchase, to move forward. Okay? So we talked about really 4 different levels to the camera. We talked about your establishing. We talked about your sort of like center shot. Your mid shot, your close-up, and then your extreme close-up. You guys are going to see an extreme close-up coming up in my next ad video. I get really, really close to the screen, and it's to punch a joke, so I think you're going to like that a lot. Okay, we talked a lot about headroom. Okay, headroom is the big one. Let me just talk for a second on that, and I'm gonna bounce this down just a little bit. Okay. With headroom, okay, the reason that headroom is so important is because you are the subject. You are the business owner, the talent. And if you're like sort of like out of focus or improperly placed in the screen, it's going to look like the camera's where it's supposed to be, but you're not where you're supposed to be. And in doing so, you're going to give your audience a sense of discomfort and unrightness. Most people won't know why they feel uncomfortable about your video. They just know they feel uncomfortable. They feel like it's not as good as other videos that they've seen. And because of that, they're going to stop watching. So let's talk about some examples of bad headroom, okay? Examples of bad headroom are like when you're, let's just say you're using a whiteboard. Let's say this is a chalkboard behind me. And you frame around the chalkboard instead of yourself. So let's get an example of what that's like, okay? So we're just going to kind of like frame around the chalkboard here. So let's just pretend that's all chalkboard. Okay? And then I'm going to come over here. See what this does, this creates that distance that we were talking about. It separates, you know, you and me from being able to see. Chances are I won't even be using that much chalkboard. You know, I'll be using more like this. There we go. That's the example I'm looking for. So what I see here, guys, is look at how far my head is from the top of the screen. Yet that 4-finger distance is like right here, right? So what happens is you framed around the background instead of the talent, okay? And it looks off. It looks off. Now you guys might be watching, so I'm writing on and I'm saying, you know, first the A minus the 2 and all this, and I'm coming over here and I'm doing this video. Now, Compare that to something like this, okay? Now it's framed around me. I'm not getting the top of the chalkboard in, but guess what? I still have all of this room here to be writing. Right now, which is more authoritative? Where I'm here taking a full 1/3 of the screen, the full 1/3 of the screen, right? 1, 2, 3, right? Or this other way, right? Where I'm back here and I'm more like less than 1/4 of the screen, okay? So I want you to think about your headroom in relationship to the talent on camera, okay? You have to be thinking about the talent that's on the camera. Don't frame around your background. I see this all the time. You're framing around your company's sign. You're framing around your company's business name. You're framing around, you know, all these other things. You need to be framing around the speaker, the talent. Why? Because, gosh, geez, all these emails. Why? Because I'm the focal point, right? Paul, would you agree that in your videos, you're the focal point? Chris, are you the focal point? Issei, are you the focal point? For most of you guys, it is. You're the focal point. So be the authoritative thing on screen, not the chalkboard, right? Not the company's business name, right? Can you imagine? I saw a video the other day from a very well-known marketer, you know, who's like, he was actually kind of like up here in the screen, so it wasn't bad, but it's obvious that the company, everything was framed around the company's business name. And so that's just kind of like in your face this whole video, and I almost wasn't even thinking about the content, right? I was thinking more about, geez, guys, like move the business name out of my way, right? So it gets a little too aggressive. So I want you to think about your headroom in that regard. I want to teach you about Lookroom now, okay? I want to teach you about Lookroom, and Lookroom is exactly that, right? Lookroom is space that's to the side of you, either this side or this side, that allows you to interact with the viewer, okay? So number one, Lookroom sort of like tells me that there's something going on over here, right? And there's space, but think about, you know, how that looks from here. You know, I don't necessarily have all the room that I need. It kind of almost makes me feel like when I look to the side, it almost makes me feel like I'm cramped up for space, okay? But when I've got this, you know, what I've got is a clear pathway for me to engage something new in the screen. All right, we call this Lookroom. Now, this is how you're going to shoot an interview if you're doing like a 2-person interview. You're going to want to have one person with Lookroom to this side and one person with Lookroom to that side, okay? They also call it nose room. They call it nose room, but Lookroom is the term that I use. Now, what does that mean for you guys making marketing videos? Well, when you've got this Lookroom, this is where you're able now to engage screen text or imagery on screen with you, right? So you have the ability to kind of go like, whoa, you know, and have text pop up. And you can do that whether you're shooting on a green screen or shooting in an office, right? All you need to do that is Lookroom, okay? Cricket's logging in. Good to see you, Cricket. Cricket's got a great channel, Red Rocket. Red Rover, send Red Rocket right over. Lookroom is very important. What I see a lot of people doing is overusing the center space. You guys are overusing this space and like putting images here and putting images here. This does not work, generally speaking. Like there are times when this can work, and usually I do this to create a crowded feeling where I put like an image up here and an image up here, but we overuse this center space. You instead need to play around with moving your talent from this side to back here, you know, and to correlate that with the things that they're saying so that they're creating an emotion for the viewer. For example, we did a video very early on in our career where we had a nurse speaking about chiropractic, right? And so whenever the nurse had something important to say, she was either here or right here. And what that did is it drew the attention to her and to her eyes. But also, a couple times in the video, we had like a medical quote. And what we did was we actually put her way down here. Like way down here. And filled the whole screen up with text. And what that does is it de-emphasizes her, the speaker, and it draws the attention to the text. Okay? All of that is accomplished with proper framing and more specifically Lookroom. Okay, so with Lookroom, I want to introduce you to a new term called the rule of thirds. Now, you've heard me mention this before, but I want you to imagine the camera sort of split up the screen into thirds, like, 1, 2, 3, and then 1, 2, 3. So there's a total of like, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 boxes on the screen. And I got some questions coming about angles. I'm going to answer those questions. I just want to get through this topic first. When we're talking about Lookroom and we're talking about the rule of thirds, you've got your vertical thirds and you've got your horizontal thirds. So as you guys can see right now, I sort of like appear in the rightmost third of the screen. Okay? And this is what I would call like, the right side of the screen. Let me just get off the chair. Okay? And so then this is center, right? And this is left, okay? So these are the 3 positions I can be on the camera. But I've also got these horizontal thirds. And in the horizontal third, I want you to notice, first of all, that the eyeballs should go in the upper third. Eyeballs should go in the upper third. So notice how I'm in this center shot right here and my eyeballs are in the upper third. Okay? When I move over to a close-up, right? Where are my eyes? My eyes are still in the upper third. Maybe right towards the bottom of it, but they're in the upper third. Okay? Your eyes tend to get placed in the upper third. Okay? However, you can play with that. Right? I want you guys to focus on knowing what these upper thirds are, right? Because you can have your eyeballs coming on this upper third, but on the middle third, you have another set of eyeballs that come in. Maybe it's a child, maybe it's a smaller person, okay? And you can sort of play with that joke. But using the rule of thirds will help you to divide the screen up into proportionally sophisticated frames. Okay? So think about the thirds. Like, do you appear in a third, in a full 1/3, right? Are you in the left, the center, or the right? And does that apply, to your eyeballs, your subjects? Are you going to have a product? If you have a product down here, it should go in the middle third area, right in here, so it's right there for me to see. That clears up this lower third area. This lower third area for screen text and captions. Now, I want you guys to specifically pay attention to that term, lower third. The term lower third means appears on the lower third of the screen. Some examples of this are in news interviews. When you interview, someone's interviewing somebody and their name pops up. Bill Jones from CBS News, right? But we also see lower thirds in captions. And we're seeing captions all over the place, right? Especially on internet video. But we're also seeing captions where else? Take a minute if you're watching. Where else do we see a lot of lower third stuff happening? Anything happening in the lower third? That's right. The news, right? We're seeing that on the news. We're seeing tickers roll. Just this constant roll of text happening. And then maybe a lower third name sort of appears above that. Now, the reason I'm spending so much time talking about the lower third is because using it effectively in your video matters. Using it effectively in your video matters. Here's some things to consider. On YouTube, there's a thing called in-video programming where a little description box will appear in the lower right-hand side of the screen. How many of you guys have seen this? Okay? That appears in the lower third. So if you're going to have your own lower third, come up with your name on it, know that it's gonna contradict, or it's gonna like overlap that button for just a second. It's no big deal unless you're a perfectionist like me and you don't want lines crossing. Now, I use tubertools.com to get my lower thirds. That's somebody that you guys might know, a gentleman named Nick Nimmin, who makes my lower thirds. And he's made a lot of his lower thirds so that they don't interact with the subscribe button. They don't interfere with it. So you can go to Tuber Tools and download his stuff. I think it's, it's $5, $10 to download something. But a lot of really great tools there. The other thing is for captions. I see this happening in a lot of marketing videos where you're using captions for the hearing impaired or for non-language learners, the deaf, which is fine, but you can't also have your name pop up as a lower third because it all gets mixed together. So if you're making a video and you know that it's going to go on Facebook and there's going to be captions underneath, then you have to raise your lower thirds up. You also have to shoot in such a way so that there's room for this lower third to be seen because there's going to be text. So if I'm going to do an extreme close-up where I'm like, but I have to get this sale today, the captions are going to come across my mouth. Are you guys with me? Okay. If I film it like this, which is not as an extreme of close-up as I wanted, but it allows the words to pass through underneath. All right? Do you guys understand that? Okay, I saw a video, it's in one of my training manuals by Vimeo, Vimeo.com. And they had exactly that. They had a video with text and captions overriding each other, like intermingling, and you couldn't read any of it. What that does is it causes a distraction. It causes break. And when you get break, that's when your audience X's off. That's when they go, huh. Now, I just noticed that right now. I had like 6 or 7 viewers on. And then as soon as I went up here and started talking, I lost 3 people. Now, that's okay. It's going to be a replay. There's going to be lots of time for people to watch this. But what did that tell me? Well, it tells me that positioning was sort of like uncomfortable. Maybe they were listening on their headphones and all of a sudden the audio got really loud, right? Because this is live. I can't master the audio for this. And it caused a break with them, so they X'd out. Oh, that's enough. I do the same thing on Snapchat. Do you guys do that where you're like going through Snapchat accounts and you're just kind of watching stories and then somebody will come out and it's like so big and bold, you just X out of there, That's what happens with your audience. That's what happens with that's why you want to have proper framing. You want to have the proper jump cuts or the proper cuts in your videos, okay? So I want you guys to think about one last thing, and then we'll wrap up, is the space. How much space do you have, okay? Paul, you're shooting on green screen, so am I, and then I can X this out. So in a green screen situation, I don't have to move the camera or myself. I just shoot the video, and then in editing, I can expand, I can scale the frame, it's called keyframing, in and out, right? This is called a cut and zoom technique, the cut and zoom technique. So I can be back here, it says, hey everybody, I'm Owen Video, and I'm here to tell you that video marketing will be the coolest thing you've ever done. But wait, can I be serious? Right? And in the final video, I'm cutting out the moving back and forth. It's like Grover, near, far. You know what I mean? I can't even believe I just did that. It's so not like me to do like a kid's voice. But that's sort of all done in the editing room when you're on a green screen. Okay? When you're shooting on location, you're going to need to sort of like move and be reframed to keep the shot interesting. Now, you can still use the cut and zoom technique, but what happens? Well, you start to get pixelated, right? Because now you're kind of like zooming in, not with the lens, but in the editing room. So the background's going to get a little pixelated. Now there are ways around that. You can shoot in 1080 and edit in 720. I don't want to get into all that right now. I want to just help you guys have some sufficient information for properly framing your videos. Now, the big takeaways. Okay, so remember the space that you're in and use the space that you're in, right? Lookroom doesn't work when you're 2/3 of the way through and you're kind of like, it's not the same thing. So I want you guys to stick to the principles, right? Be in this side of the screen and look that way for proper Lookroom. Okay? And same thing goes over here. You don't need to be halfway in, halfway out, or just elbows just barely touching. Just frame yourself so that your body appears in 1/3 of the screen. Consider your space. How far are you from the camera, right? If you're in a tight room, you might want to bring in a chair to get your proper frame. I have a bar stool as well, right? I have one of these, and these are different heights. And what these enable me to do is get different frames, right? That's how important it is, because I've shot, like many of you guys, I've shot in all sorts of different environments. Most of those are tight environments, right? They're a little bit tighter. So you've got to be lower to make the frame work. Paul says, okay, I'm going to get you guys' questions in just a quick second here. I'm going to wrap up with this. Know the space that you're in, use the space that you're in, and use the space that you're in most effectively for that space, right? Don't try to shoot green screen outdoors. It's not going to work, right? You're going to have wavy screens. It's not even what green screen's made for. That's a blue screen you're going to want to use. So, consider the space that you're in, right, before you start doing all of that. Quick review, and then I'll get to your questions. Framing your video affects the way that your viewers feel about what they're watching. And you can manipulate the frame by moving the camera, or in the editing room by cutting and zooming. You can manipulate the frame to make the viewer feel a way you want them to feel, whether it's feel like they're in a large room with lots of space, or to make them feel like tight and cramped, like they're in an elevator. You want to make sure, number one rule, that your headroom is key. About 4 fingers, give or take, But where your top, it's maybe even a little bit less than 4 fingers. But you really want to have your head properly positioned with headroom in the space, meaning that you've got just a little bit of space right above your head. Okay? Headroom is so key. You can't be cut off like this. It's going to distract people. And you don't want to be so low. You don't want to frame around a secondary subject. For the most part, frame around the human. Frame around the human. Okay? Lookroom. Lookroom is having proper space to either side, right? If you're in the center of the screen, focus on your headroom. Lookroom's not going to do too much for you. Lookroom is more applied to this rule of thirds, right? When you're on this third of the screen, okay? That brings us to the rule of thirds. Remember, place your main subjects on the thirds, right? In clearly on the right, the center, or the left, or the top, the middle, or the bottom. That's really what the rule of thirds is all about, right? Try to keep your eyes naturally gravitate to these geometric shapes. And I can't really get into all of that. You need visuals. There's a great visual in Donald Duck Meets Mathland about how the Mona Lisa and all these great paintings are using the rule of thirds and rectangles and spirals and these different things, which are all related. So just remember, when it comes to framing, make sure that your important stuff is in the left, center, right, or clearly in the top, middle, bottom, right? No muddled stuff. And then, remember the space that you're out. Lookroom, with Lookroom, remember that this is where you're going to be able to add text and images in to interact with and to, sort of increase that emotional drive that you're trying to create. Remember on the bottom, the lower thirds, that you're going to have a lot going on there. You're going to have captions down there. You're going to have a subscribe button down there. You're going to have your lower thirds coming down there. So think about what's going to appear down there and properly position your content, accordingly. So thank you guys so much for watching. I hope that you enjoyed this. I'm going to answer questions in just a second, but I want to do my official goodbye. So if you haven't already, subscribe to this video, subscribe to this channel, and we'll see you guys next time. Okay, now that's for YouTube. Now I'm going to come back and answer some of your questions. Okay, so Paul says, talking about the rule of thirds, I see you're are you sitting to the side of the camera or at an angle? Very important, guys. How you look at the camera affects how your audience interacts with you. So this is like a standard talking head video. This is more like an interview video, right? And notice how you're sort of like in the room with me. You're sort of like watching me speak, but you're not at all the center of attention here. So I could talk about, this is a great speaker reel. So I could talk about like interviews, that sort of thing. And that's typically done at like a 30-degree angle. But when I'm talking to you right here, I'm talking to you, right? And I think this is more engaging for the types of videos that we want to do, right? So it's not whether you should look away or look at the camera, it's what kind of video are you doing? What kind of video you're doing is going to necessitate where you should be looking. Issei says, would you advise to look into the camera or look into the angles? When I see great speeches in videos, the speaker never looks directly at the audience. Yeah, great point. Why? Because number one, the camera is not going to be in the middle of the room, right? For a great speaker. It's simply not going to be. And if it is going to be from a high, like an elevate, like a balcony, right? So number one, that shot of them looking directly at the camera is not possible. Number two, what is possible is the side view. So that's why you're getting it. And here's the psychology behind that. With the 30-degree angle, guys, and you're seeing great speeches, what you're seeing is you are seeing that you are part of a movement, that you are not the unique individual person this was made for, but that this was made for all of us together. What it does, and I don't mean that in a negative way. I just mean that the 30-degree angle places you in an audience. The straightforward look makes you the audience. Does that make sense? I hope so. Okay, so Paul says, what if I'm not shooting on a green screen? Paul, are you shooting on a white screen? Shooting on a green screen is very challenging. And so, or excuse me, shooting on a white screen is very challenging because it never comes out truly white. It's always going to come out sort of grayish. You know what I mean? So I think I went into that a little bit when I talked about know your space, know where you're shooting, okay? And be sure that you're framed up, right? Be sure that you're framed up according to the rules that we talked about. I just forgot a rule. The back of your head. You guys have got to watch out for stuff like this, where I'm like right here and the pole's coming out of my head. You got to watch out for that kind of stuff. You got to watch out for stuff like, I'm just going to blow this example, but, I could be over, and it's so hard to do. I'm like making this up right now. But, just this kind of stuff where it's just right next to me. It's like extending out from me. You've got to like have yourself, this clip is a great example. See how that clip is sort of like makes my head look weird? Like, it's like, what's going on? That creates break, right? The audience is broken from my message to figure out what's going on here. So you have to be conscious of all this. You've got, what is that? And you've got to be able to move out of the way or move to cover it, right? And even when you cover it, some of the normal sway, right, can get in the way of that. So just move, right? Just move around it. So I'm going to cut the training there today, guys. Thank you so much for joining, and I want to remind you that we're launching a course at the first of the year. The course is designed for business owners doing video, and I'd love to know what you want to see in a course like that. Now, we've already made most of the content, but I want to make sure nothing's missing. I want to make this the best course out there for business owners. So I'd love to know what your thoughts are, and I hope you guys will stay in touch. Okay. The question is, the camera's looking straight ahead. I'm going to get to that question after this, Paul. I'll reach you back on this because I got to wrap this up. I got calls coming up. Thank you guys so much for watching. We'll see you next time.